Hello, good morning. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Indeed, it's a beautiful Friday morning.
Yes,
How
absolutely.
can we fail to
right.
mention that? The sun shining gloriously this morning.
Yeah.
Welcome to the program. I'm Maukwe Ogun Yusuf.
Indeed, Maukwe, thank God it's Friday. Welcome to the program. I am Bukola Koka.
Well, let me remind you again that today is July 14. And it's a Friday morning, as everyone else has said. I'm Ayo Makine. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Yeah, so quite a number of activity which made the rounds yesterday, one of which was the court's decision concerning the suspended CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele. So the DSS responded to that, and they say, sequel to an Abuja High Court order of yesterday, 13th July, the Department of State Service, DSS, did then subsequently confirm to everybody that Mr. Godwin Emefiele has been charged to court in compliance with the order. So the last bit here says they are assuring the public of professionalism, justice, and fairness in handling the matter, and indeed the discharge of its duties within the confines of the law. That's signed by the public relations officer of the DSS, Peter Afanaya, PhD. So quite a number of people will keep tabs on that one and see how that eventually plays out. But and then speaking of another matter that made the rounds yesterday, the president did say he's going to wrestle Nigeria, take Nigeria back from vested interests who have held the country down. And, you know, when you hear this kind of narrative, of course, you expect a lot of things. While they were speaking to some members of the APC, for instance, in one area which we'd like to see that happen almost as quick as possible is security. Because, I mean, all of those attacks, all of those killings, it needs to stop. And there needs to be a riot act. And yes, yesterday we talked about all of those fomenting trouble in the southeastern part of the country. They also need to move against such persons because several residents there just want to go about their normal duties. But if they don't find security presence to guarantee safety of lives and property, they will not go out there to their normal businesses. And so in that area, okay, even though, yes, he did speak about that as well, asking them to go ahead and do it. So much as he's talked about them working together, the security, the service chiefs, and not at cross purposes, we're just looking to see. We can't wait. Yes, they might have hit the ground, but did they hit the ground running? I guess we'll wait and see. But that is a very key component. We'll focus on some other parts of what transpired yesterday, of course, on the program. But in that area of security, we cannot wait to just begin to see the kind of results that we all want moving forward. Yeah, that's what I think.
I think that, you know, for the security chiefs, yes, indeed, the goals need to be a little clearer. But when you talk about security now...
It's not clear enough?
Well, I mean that, you know, then there needs to be targets. Yes, it would be very ideal.
No more killings.
To lose no life and lose no property. It would be very, very ideal. But we know that even in developed countries, there's something that they still struggle with. So we need to ask ourselves, what realistic goals are we?
The minimum KPIs.
Are we? Yes.
Police, for instance, your response time to those crime scenes. The impression that people get in that area, that when it's time to come in and make arrest, you look, said something's happened, some people escape, and that impression needs to be corrected.
That's
because if they need to volunteer information to you, they need to see you on their side.
Indeed. So that's why I'm saying that the KPIs need to be very clear. It can't just be something broad and vague. Yes, we all will know when security has improved. We all will begin to feel safer. You will hear people say more and more that, oh, we can you know, move to our farmlands. We should feel it in food production. We'll feel it in every facet. But as I think that the goals need to be clear. So we saw the National Assembly, more specifically the Senate, you know, approve the nomination of the service chiefs yesterday and confirmed them at the National Assembly. And they did most of the screening indoors, behind closed doors. Some of the feedback which they gave seems to us that they were quite impressed with how the service chiefs spoke you know, about their plans. So we can only wish them well. We can only, because they didn't bring them from space. They've been within the military. They've been within the force, some of them serving in very key positions, while the other service chiefs, just retired service chiefs, you know, were in office. So I don't want to imagine that they're strangers to the challenges that we face, or that they do not know where it is that the military stands. I think one of the things that you must also, you know, we can applaud within the military is the seamless way in which they transit. A week before one of the former service chiefs left, for instance, the chief of army staff left, was when they were planning their National Army Day celebration. It was a week-long celebration, and the transition seamlessly happened without you even knowing that there's been a change of chiefs. So that's one of the things that they're good at. I want to believe that whatever plans the other service chiefs had started and they need to consolidate upon, that these ones will not say, oh, we're going to scrap everything. They're not politicians. That's not how they work. They're not going to scrap everything and say, no, we now have to do our own because we want our names to be there. No, that's not how they work. So let us hope that they will bring new vigor to the drive. They'll consolidate on some of the things that have been started. Some progress has been made. It's not yet perfect. In fact, it's far from perfect. Looking at the kinds of killings we've seen recently in Benue and in Plateau State, I want to believe that they know that they have work on their hands. But we're beginning to see signs, especially in the Niger Delta. In recent times, people have been asking, what exactly is... I think it was Buki who asked yesterday, what has informed this renewed vigor? We've seen, you know, ship being caught. We've seen I think, a raid in some areas of the Niger Delta. What is
somebody about to lose their contract?
That's a big question. But is it also about the service chiefs? Is it about, you know, new spirits coming into the force? Big question. So let us hope that indeed they'll put their money where their mouth is. They have said, especially not the CDS. Now the CDS is their senior, but the Chief of Army Staff, Chief of Naval, and Chief of Air Staff, they all belong to the same set, and they have a cordial friendship amongst them. So I want to believe that they will bring that synergy into how they work, and that we'll begin to see it achieve quicker results in terms of how our land and our territorial integrity is secured. Okola and Bayode.
Indeed, Malpe, yes, the new security chiefs who have now been confirmed have their work cut out for them in terms of, you know, going after the non-state actors, particularly in the northern part of Nigeria, when we consider, you know, the impact of insecurity and the work of these people. We know that, you know, it's multidimensional, impacting many different sectors. The transport sector, for instance, there was a time in this country when the older generation would say that they could travel to as far as the north. You know, the north was the haven of peace in Nigeria, but that is not the case anymore. And also, you know, it has also impacted the security sector. Little wonder that the president declared a state of emergency in that sector yesterday. And we now understand that having declared a state of emergency in that sector, the president now has extrajudicial powers to intervene in that sector. So we know that, you know, some states which are agricultural, you know, basins of this country, Benue, Plateau, for instance, you know, even the north, you know, where agricultural activity is going on, they're impacted by one form of security or the other, and they are connected. Security of lives and property and food security are interconnected. But one area where I would like to see the president, in line with his words, tackle vested interests in this country would be, you know, in the area of crude oil theft. Time and again, we have heard how experts and even, you know, some former government officials have accused corporations, the NNPC, for instance. We had the former Minister of Aviation on the program say, you know, way back in time in 2009, the report that they produced indicted the NNPCL of benefiting from crude oil theft. Multinationals too have been, you know, fingered in crude oil theft. Will the funds stolen from this country be repatriated such that, you know, we can have meaningful development? Will those vested interests be brought to book? Can the administration make an example, you know, of an individual or corporation that has been involved one way or the other in crude oil theft? the National Assembly has been in the forefront of, investigating since as far back as 2016, crude oil theft. Where are the results? So in that area, it'll be interesting to see, people brought to book. Ayo.
It's like you pipped into my notes because I was going to, clamp down on step up on what Marco was saying about, crude oil theft as well. Vested interests in various sectors of the Nigerian economy. When the president was speaking about security, he spoke about a number of things, Medicare, security, and all of those things. And he would do everything to rescue Nigeria from vested interests. And as you said, yes, there have been quite a number of investigations here and there, indictments here and there. So in rescuing these people from vested interests, how do we know that other vested interests will not come if there is no penance? Who is going to raise the issues? Who is going to call out these people? I think it was Sari Dokubo that indicted the military. Particularly, he indicted the Navy. And all we heard from the Navy was, he should bring out names and all those things. Well, those who are looking at it will say, hey, if you guys know that he's not telling the truth, why is he not being arrested? So is there any iota of truth in what Sari Dokubo was saying? If so, is it part of what the president is going to take on? If it is not, who are these vested interests that are not unknown to people? It's just that, I know, Chamberlain, you and all of us here may also be able to confirm. Whenever I want to talk about vested interests, in most cases, people don't want to talk about crude oil theft. In most cases, people don't want to talk about it for fear of one, retribution on them or the other, especially those in the sector. So who are these vested interests? How powerful are they indeed? Is the president going to make an example, bring up some names? When we looked up the name of that company that was said to own the crude oil, the ship that was recently destroyed, it came up with a company that was, registered in 2009, and from like 2012 or thereabout, no one heard anything about it anymore. So it is an institution. Question, who owns that? And several others that have happened before now. Recently, the military also, I think it was, that went into the Niger Delta and the creeks and destroyed a number of illegal refineries. Who owned them? A number of people have told us countless times that crude oil theft is not something for the lily-livered. It's not something for those who pick scraps beside the road. It's for people who have means and knowledge. So, is the president going to call out these people, make an example of them indeed, so that generations after he has left office, we won't hear of those things anymore? Until then, who are these vested interests? I guess we'll wait. Chamberlain.
Oh, yeah. So the waiting game is on, isn't it? All right. How about the part of corruption? Several vested interests has held this country down with corruption, and I don't think the president needs to look that far to see how he could wrestle that out. But let's go ahead and take you through some of the dailies here today, and we're starting with Daily Trust. Supplementary budget. Senators, reps get 70 billion naira to enhance, look at that, working conditions. It just looks as if these people need this palliative much more than the regular people on the streets, because if this is not palliative right there, what is it? But 70 billion naira to enhance working conditions? What kind of working conditions are they going through, please? Can somebody enlighten me on this? I need to know. Look at the highlights. It's height of insensitivity, CSOs. Fund is for National Assembly, not us, lawmakers. Atiku kicks as Senate approves Tinubu's $800 million loan. You don't know whether to laugh or what when you see this. It's for National Assembly, not us. What's National Assembly? What, the seats, the chairs? Not the lawmakers? Oh, boy. All right. goodness.
I don't know.
It's-
Part of me, wants to put kerosene inside the fire you're lighting, but no, another part is saying, no, we hear them out. Let's hear them out completely, before we jump to conclusions. Because indeed, the National Assembly is bigger than just the how many members are there now? 360 plus 109. It's bigger than that. There is a whole commission that runs the National Assembly. They have institutions attached to the National Assembly. Now, whether this 70 billion is going to extend to these other commissions and other arms, it's unclear. For instance, NILDS, they've been building their office, which the president commissioned, by the way. How come they haven't moved in? I don't know. They have the National Assembly Service Commission. Will it also extend to them? I don't know. So let's hear them out first. Let's not jump to conclusions before,
Well, it's already been concluded here to enhance working conditions.
Exactly.
So what
will
else?
it include their aides and they're new members. A lot of them are new members. Majority of the people who have come in are new members. So a lot of them do not have accommodation. A lot of them do not have, there's still going to be vehicles that will be purchased, etc., etc. As I said, usually it's to pour kerosene in the fire, but let's hear them out.
Well, clearly, there's enough to go around.
Indeed.
70 billion naira. That's the big deal. We'll see some of. I think they will be trying to see the breakdown as well of this one. Yeah, but there you go. Well, I'd like to hear what you think of it, anyways, if you don't mind. And then NCAA grounds Max Air's B737 planes probes adulterated fuel. Now, this, ordinarily you think, okay, well, probably for one of those things. But if you actually go and look deeper, the aircraft was actually scheduled to operate Maiduguri route, but then they say that it diverted to Yola after noticing what they say was hundreds of liters of water in the fuel tank, and then the flight was aborted. Guys, hundreds of liters of water in the fuel tank, along with... I don't know how to say this, because...
because, I mean, a whole plane would have
even if they sell bad fuel, even if you sell bad fuel, there's a quantum of water that will be found. But this says hundreds of liters. Even if they say you've not checked that tank or done water check for 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, but that amount of water, hundreds of liters.
There needs to be a thorough investigation into that particular incident, which we made its rounds on social media. That's where it was highlighted. And to also ask critical questions of the NCAA as to, are we letting our guards down with safety? If this had not been highlighted on social media,
would they have seen it?
Would you have seen it? Would we have allowed another disaster happen first before we swung into action? I want to believe that the NCAA, whatever it is doing, its primary responsibility is to ensure safety in our skies. Thankfully, we've had, at least safety, especially in civil aviation, for, a good time now. I don't want to believe that they're now about to drop the ball. I think that they really need to become a bit hawkish with the airlines in ensuring that they do not drop the standards because of maybe they're trying to cut costs or, tough times or whatever it is. Yeah, tough times, things might be tough, but by all means, I don't think safety should be one of the things that should be allowed to suffer as a result of things being tough. And even for those who supply them fuel, that really needs to be investigated. Who could have supplied an airline, thousands of liters of water to put in their tank as fuel? If indeed there was some negligence in that regard, maybe somebody should be charged for attempted manslaughter.
Wasn't it yesterday or the day before when we highlighted the last time there was adulterated fuel brought into this country? Who has been prosecuted?
Nobody.
So that is why you see these kind of things and
happen
people feel
over
they
and
can get
over
away with
again.
it.
Indeed.
So there you go.
Very sad indeed. Very sad. But take a look at what Leadership Friday has to offer you this morning. Tinubu battles food inflation, declares state of emergency. That's what Leadership Friday is talking about on the front page. Orders immediate release of fertilizer, grains, creates commodity board to stabilize food prices. Okay, that's right there on the front page. 6, approval for $800 million World Bank loan. So that story is on page 4 of the paper for you. Don't forget that yesterday we had asked about the 500 billion naira which the president was asking the National Assembly, which he had written the House for. Yeah, whether this was also in addition to the $800 million loan which the Buhari administration had been pursuing. It does happen that, you know, these two monies are two separate monies which he's seeking approval for and does appear to have gotten approval for, at least at the Senate. So $800 million World Bank loan plus 500 billion naira, all of them reportedly for palliative to Nigerians. Let us hope that this really trickles down and that the president is really able to ensure that the money gets into the hands of the most vulnerable Nigerians. Page 4 is where you get to see details of the particular story. You also see this: service chiefs expert task president on no amnesty for bandits. It's on page 7. Max air suspension won't affect pilgrims' airlift, that's according to NACON. And look at the CISLAC. Others call for state anti-corruption agencies. This story, which I'm about to highlight, is extremely important. I think that, again, it emphasizes the challenge that the security chiefs have before them. 346 killed in 8 plateau local government areas. This is a private body bringing this figure to light. 346 people in 8 local government, all within the period of, guess how long? 3 months. 3 months. Really, this bloodletting needs to stop. Needless killings happening really needs to stop. Page 7 is where you'll find details. And a conversation with Azu is on the back page this morning. Tinubu and burden of ministerial lists is the gist, if you get my drift. Let's leave it there for Leadership Friday.
It's a poetic Friday from Malpe. Well, what I have next for you is this Nigeria. This Nigeria also leads with that big announcement from the president yesterday, the presidency. Tinubu declares state of emergency on food security. Listen to the headlines, the riders. To distribute free grains to farmers, households, partner compliant states to create ranches. NAS approves 500 billion naira federal government's request for palliative. 12 million poor Nigerian households to receive 8,000 naira monthly for 6 months. And pretty much that's what I've been brooding on for much of yesterday when the news broke. What really can 8,000 naira do for a household? Fuel is already 500 naira per liter, and it's headed for 600 naira or 700 naira based on the exchange rate, particularly because we're still importing fuel at the moment. The big refineries we're expecting to begin working have not begun to deliver yet. So the fuel is still headed for a higher amount, the pump price of fuel. So what really can 5,000 naira, 8,000 naira do for 12 million households?
Well, it depends on the states, and it's something that I've actually considered quite a number of times when they say $1 a day cannot feed some people. I mean, in certain aspects, in certain economies, personal economies, you find out that 200 naira can do quite a lot in certain parts of Nigeria, in certain rural areas in Nigeria, while 200 naira is absolutely nothing in certain other parts. Even in Lagos, what you would get for 200 naira in some areas of the city, you may not be able to even get anywhere near in downtown Lagos and all of that. So that is perhaps that is part of the consideration that the federal government is looking at.
But we have the spread of food on the front page of this Nigeria, and your guess is as good as mine. I'm sure you've been to the market. You know how much a tuber of yam costs. You know how much a basket of tomato costs now. It's skyrocketing. It's really a cause for concern. Let's leave it there for this Nigeria.
The Guardian newspaper is on its front page saying, talking about good governance, quite a focus on Lagos. Despite huge revenue, Lagos local councils underperform, worsen residents' pains. The pictures you see on the front page, are they related? Well, you may want to check the big story. I mean, look at if you.
It pretty much depicts the state of infrastructure in Lagos.
Please, specifically roads, okay? We have a government in place in Lagos, and we have local government chairmen and local council development chairmen all over the city of Lagos. No, all over the state of Lagos, because when you say city of Lagos, maybe the state is a little larger than that. And it's focusing on local councils in Lagos. So who is your local government chairman, by the way? Who is your councillor?
Well, I think we need to zero in on how the funds are being distributed. Are local government funds still being held in trust by the state government? What exactly is the situation in Lagos? Do the funds go directly to the local government chairman or local government authorities, so to speak? So do they have the power to embark on infrastructure, major infrastructure projects for rehabilitation and construction?
The Lagosian doesn't care.
The
Constitution says that part of the job of a local government chairman is to fix roads. Whether which kind of road it is, they will find it in the Constitution. Get down to the job. What did the president say? Hit the ground running.
Well, let's wait for the state government, the Lagos state government, to respond to those very valid questions.
Well, it's a big story
about
on the front
the capacity of the local government chairman. Before we run ahead of ourselves.
Look, when I was, and this is one thing that we as Nigerians should begin to do. Where I lived in a particular community at some point, and we were having challenges with electricity. I didn't care whether it was his job or not. The guy was living next door to me. I went into the house and barged on his door. Guy, we don't have lights. So it's his job to consult. It's his job to consult people. Of course, he intervened. He may not have the direct, authority to do it, but he knows the people to call to get these things done. So let people take these people on, test the authorities, test the system, and get things done.
Results.
So if the local government chairmen know that they are being called out this morning, they themselves will march to the governor's office and say, the needful needs to be done.
But by the way, let's know what your roads are like in your streets, in your township, in your neighborhood in Lagos. Let's know what it's like so that we can have some results. Let's also mount some pressure, citizen responsibility.
Well, that's the Guardian newspaper this morning. Chamberlain.
All right, take a look at New Telegraph as the next one. Subsidy palliative. Tinubu's government to pay 12 million naira for, I beg your pardon, Tinubu's government to pay 12 million poor households 8,000 naira monthly. Okay, that is a big one here. For 6 months, and it says declares state of emergency on food security, assures farmers of safety. Senate approves 500 billion naira, that's $800 million, for social safety net, allocates 70 billion as grant, there you go, as grant to National Assembly. So it's different from the statutory provisions. Those ones will also be there, but this is a grant. NANS reject fee hike in tertiary institutions. So there you go. That's what you see right here. So that is New Telegraph this morning.
Okay, I'm taking a look at Vanguard newspapers for you, but this story is, I can assure the National Assembly that it's not going to go away anytime soon. The monies which they've approved for the president for palliatives, and the fact that they are going to be getting 70 billion of the particular money for working conditions, they had better come out with an explainer very soon. A very, very solid explainer, because people are going to be asking, what exactly is it for? If they have said it's not just for just them, no problem. Can we see what exactly it is for? How is this going to be enhancing the working conditions of members of the National Assembly? As I've said, I'm willing to give benefit of the doubt until we see that explainer, and had better come out. Because yesterday, one of the things I noticed, when the Senate president was, about to hit the gavel on the table, I noticed the smile on his face.
Maybe he's thinking, wow, we're to tighten our
I
belts.
wasn't sure.
We're about to tighten our belts before the gavel hits.
I wasn't sure what that smile, but it was something I noticed. When we play that report, watch out for it and tell me what you noticed as well. But I say that they had better come out with an explainer as quickly as possible. Anyways, that's what Vanguard is highlighting this morning. Uproar. Our Senate okays fresh $800 million World Bank borrowing. Okay, is it the fresh one or is it the same one which the Buhari administration had been pursuing? You will need clarification as federal government plans 8,000 naira monthly palliative for 12 million poor households. NLC, TUC, cake. Well, what did I say? Expert stakeholders lampoon palliative plans, suggest alternative use. That story is on page 5 of the paper. You also have a number of, as you can see, your sport for choice on the front page of Vanguard this morning. Mofi to raise 100 trillion naira from federal government idle assets. Who is Mofi? Flip to page 19 of the paper. You also have sports. Your Mr. and Mrs. is also on the front page. That this morning, 2 Misters are discussing this morning about having a mistress. You might want to know whether that's how they're choosing to tighten their own belts. You never can tell. But let's leave it there for Vanguard newspapers. And also wraps up our look at the dailies this morning. Do stay on with us as we dig into the topics we have for you.
Singing songs of solidarity, members of a civil society coalition marched through the streets of Abuja to register their displeasure with the report of the European Union criticizing the 2023 general elections. The peaceful march terminates at the headquarters of the European Union, where leaders of the group addressed officials of the Union.
We have come to register unequivocally that we are not satisfied with the report of the European Union. As a matter of fact, we are of the opinion that the report is not just ridiculous, but a deliberate act to slight the Nigerian entity, and of course, by implication, our leaders and the government of Nigeria.
Particularly now that we are grappling with fundamental issues of insecurity. There is no way European Union will beat her chest and say she's in love with Nigeria and she's in love in seeing the progress of this country, and also at the same time come to add salt to injury. It shouldn't be.
With a promise from the political advisor at the union to relay the message of the protesters, the group take their leave. At a separate event, the Inter-Party Advisory Council aligns with the protesters as they believe INEC deserves commendation for conducting credible elections.
IPAC is of the opinion that the 2023 general election was one of the most meticulously prepared for in recent times. Also, the unprecedented enthusiasm demonstrated by the Nigerian youth who trooped out in their numbers despite structural and procedural challenges were largely responsible for some of the positive developments. INEC should be praised for technological innovations introduced, especially in the accreditation of voters using the bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS, which has generally been scored very high by voters.
The European Union Election Observation Mission to Nigeria had in its final report faulted the 2023 general election, stating violence, killing, and vote buying as some of the factors for its criticism.
Every step taken by this administration should reflect, with this president, at least until cases are concluded, should reflect the reality of the economic situation of the country, especially as it affects the majority of Nigerian citizens. The Constitution of Nigeria allowed for nominations from 36 states. I do not think we should go beyond that. in recognition of the stark economic hardship that is confronting our people. The Obligatory Presidential Campaign Organization hereby condemn vehemently the negative and jaundiced responses on the EU report and other election observers' reports by the spokesperson of the APC administration and other ill-informed persons which are totally in discord with the mood of the nation at this time. The ELEC has done enough damage that it merits, being sanctioned accordingly. Ideally, anybody who has committed the kind of gross abuse of office that INEC has committed should resign. But we are in Nigeria where, all things. So that of CBN and EFs will remain a selective approach to justice. If INEC, whose wrongdoing actually has greater consequences, for the well-being of the nation.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, yes, indeed, taking a look at what, as you've seen, highlighted in that report. We've got two gentlemen joining us this morning. Akin Oshutokun is the Director General, Obidati Campaign Council. And then we'll have Obiakpo Odire, member of the APC and President, Good Leadership Advocacy for Africa. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Mr. Oshutokun, listening to the call, which is just in that report, but you have people who will think, wait a minute, if they go ahead and heed to your call for the INEC chairman to leave office, we know there's a petition going on, and then they wonder, has there been any investigation or reports? Has it been found guilty of any of such things upon which they will base that action on? So should the call come at this time, or should it come maybe afterwards, or what?
Well, thank you very much. Investigation. I'm surprised that you believe that this INEC needs to be investigated all over again to establish its culpability. That's what all the reports said, all the opinions, all of them, including the one they consider sympathetic. That is the ECOWAS report. If INEC, and especially the chairman, is guilty of all those things, you go over them all over again. What more investigation do you want? INEC itself even gave evidence against itself. They had our hope, they raised our hopes to high heavens on beavers and IRF. The first thing that will happen on the election day is for INEC to report that there was a glitch. But what did I spend billions on naira and then donations from outside? Look, I've always asked the question that, was assuming what they are saying is correct, was it not anticipated that there would be a glitch or a technical fault, in which case you then have a fallback option? You didn't hear of anything like that. Months to the election, even weeks, it was common sight to really see the INEC chairman and the Public Affairs Commissioner pontificating on how they are going to give us the best election because of the usage of Vivas and IRF. Right? What happened? I don't know if it's possible. What I believe is that it was a deliberate sabotage. If anything like that happened, the person that was hosting them didn't report any glitch on February 25th. And we didn't even establish that fact, that there was no glitch. So you are telling me that what more investigation do we need to come to the conclusion that INEC needs to be sanctioned? I just don't know.
These issues you raised are the issues largely that are before the tribunal. So is it that you don't believe that the tribunal will do a good job?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Look, I've only asked for that of the chairman and his public complaints commissioner. INEC has already given its evidence, its witness testimony at the court. So that phase is past. The tribunal doesn't need them again to come and do anything. Look, the performance of INEC at the proceedings, further confirms the problem that this country has. The standpoint of INEC in those proceedings, because I make it a point of duty to go there daily, was that the electoral law, right, gives them the discretion, whatever it is, to bypass either Beavers or IREF and report manually. In other words, condemning what is supposed to be an aid to the performance of his function. Right? This is what they have been saying at the court, supported by the other respondents, saying essentially, look, take your eyes away from this. Don't put emphasis on Vivas. This can happen. In any case, the electoral law did not limit them, did not constrain them to the use of electronic devices alone. Now, 300 billion down the drain of Nigeria's money. Millions of dollars from the international community. This is what you get. Right. So I don't know if when we want to talk about investing, I don't see any, well, they themselves, in the feat of escapism, they are making a scapegoat of their resident electoral commissioner in Adamawa State. What has he done that they have not done twice?
Okay, so what I want to know is this, because some people will say accountability is one thing. I mean, we can ask for accountability. So much money has been spent. What was promised versus what was delivered. But if you're asking for prosecution, what you seem to be delving into is the realm of criminality. I don't know if you agree. Yeah. In this instance, what exactly will be the offense? What exactly will the INEC chairman be charged for?
Well, sabotage. Look, in any case, you already mentioned the fact that the money they spent or claim to have spent, they should account for it. So that's a crime. If they have misused the money that they have spent, it's a crime. Or all the things, if they are guilty of all those allegations that are leveled against them.
No, you haven't put an if in it. You have simply...
No, listen. There's no point in me putting if. We are asking you for what the basis. So I'm giving you the basis for that. That almost all the observers to the T, including media, including the General Situation Room observer of Nigerians, came to the same how more or less INEC sabotaged the of the elections. I'm sure you will have, when they come, they tell you there was the main witness at the tribunal, the IT director, one Dr. Bayodi. First, he's a pastor as well, a redeemed pastor. He refused to swear on the Bible. He said he doesn't want to swear on the Bible. Secondly, he doesn't want to be referred to as pastor. Right. So you see, the thing that what INEC represents, unfortunately, is typical, in what has become the systemic crisis of Nigeria. See, it seems as if we have rogue agencies. Nigeria is, encircled. But where do you break this vicious cycle? Yesterday, there was a statement by the Vice Chancellor of the Ahmadu Bello University, Professor Kabiru Baya. He said his colleagues, who were used as returning officers, what he said he shivered when they were telling him, almost boasting, of how they rigged the election. I have it here in quote. So if you are interested in it, this was what the Vice Chancellor of ABU said. So if professors are doing this, so if gold can rust, what does iron? And so where are you going to break the side? Where?
Well, Dr. Bire, I mean, you've heard such token submissions about the impressions. Yes, we also have been privy to that EU report, which I'm sure you might have also seen. So what do you make of this?
Thank you, Chamberlain. You see, when certain things happen, people go around them. The election was conducted across 170-something polling units, 1,000 polling units. Now, the EU report, the coverage of that report percentage is insignificant. So coming up with that kind of reports concerning the general elections. Now, I understand the point of Labour Party. I understand the point. But the issue is very simple. This same INEC conducted elections where they got over 6 million votes. This same INEC conducted the elections where they swept the entire Southeast and some places in this country. Now, take a look at it. If it has gone the other way, that at the end of the exercise, Labour Party won the election, INEC would have been the best institution Nigerians have ever had. It's a fact that it is only when the opposition win election that it is free and fair. But when they don't win, there's rigging. The areas where you won elections, there was no rigging there. The area where other people won election, there was rigging there. It doesn't make sense. Politics is science, is numbers. You win some, other people will also win. When you celebrate your win, other people will also celebrate their win. So you cannot say the entire country voted for one particular party. No.
Can I come in and ask you? You are completely wrong. It was not the Labour Party alone who said that the election was fraudulent. All the observer mission reports say so in different degrees. So please take that into consideration when you are making your allegation.
Yes.
Secondly, please, your party did worse in 2011, threatening to go and form parallel government on the basis of rejecting the election. So please, try and be more accurate when you make your positions known. It is not Labour Party alone. It's up to you. If you believe that the areas where Labour won is fraudulent, it's up to you to go and establish the fact. We have not asked you not to do so. You cannot tell us what we need to do when we believe this very so manifestly. This is what occurred. And as I said, you can even go back to the media, the Nigerian media and international media, when they were reporting those elections. So please know who you are addressing. It is not Labour Party. You are addressing the international communities who sent the observers, and they came down with that report.
It also depends on the coverage of the report. Because if you are giving an evidence, you should be able to say, this is what I observe here, this is what I observe here. How many observers?
Have you read the report?
Yes, I have. How many observers did they deploy
You are not speaking as if you read the report.
I read the report.
The international community, reporters, observers saturated the country. Not just one, several. So I don't know what, there is a Nigerian civil society organizations. They have a group called the Nigerian Situation Room, comprising all, they came to the same report. So I don't know whether we are talking about the same election.
Yes, we are talking about the same elections. These matters are in court. It is left. I think we should be patient. We should be patient to see the outcome of the court. It's a place for everyone. Every party that is part of this tribunal, they have made their point and they are still making their point. So let's wait for the outcome of the proceedings at the tribunal before you hang. Because as it is, it's like a child who failed exams, blaming the invigilator. It doesn't make sense. If you prepare for an exam, you should be able to know the outcome of the exam. APC, we were prepared for election, and we went into elections, and we won the elections.
So even if the invigilator is a fraud, even if he had there, he gave results or whatever, the answers to some students who are doing the exam.
It is left for you
and
to
then
prove that. It's very simple.
Excuse me, please, we are in court, and that is what we are proving.
Exactly. You yourself said that. Let's leave it and wait for the outcome of the court.
Whether we leave it, no.
It's very simple.
Listen. Channels decide. You are not going to teach them how they do their job. They asked us to come and speak. They didn't wait till after the court proceedings. EU did not wait for the outcome or before it released its report. So as I said again, when you are making your point, always make sure that you have your facts, logic right.
And so just to clarify, I mean, we are not, we're discussing the EU report, then the call made by the Labour Party and what some parties have also alluded to about aspects of the election. We're not discussing the prayers before the tribunal and the courts, as it were. So that is aside. But what do you, Dr. Bray, what do you make of the call for accountability in terms of funds accrued to INEC, give an account of how all of those are spent? Is that the right call, or is it out of place?
Yes, it's the right call. It's the right call. You see, every institution of government should be able to account for their actions. Funds were made available for the elections. And after the elections, if people are demanding for accountability, it's a right thing to do.
So if the INEC chairman is found, or the commission is found wanting in terms of how they probably utilize the funds, what would you recommend?
There are also institutions that handle such things. The matters, when those are established, you also bring them into such institutions to handle them. So I would not be the one to sit down. I have not indicted the INEC chairman. I have not seen what he has done wrongly. But if you see what he has done wrongly, or you feel or believe that something happened, after accountability and is indicted, yes, the law should take its course. It's as simple as that.
So what I want to know, Dr. Bere, is you say you've not seen anything that the INEC chairman has done wrongly, but do you agree that INEC did not live up to the promises which it made prior to the elections?
Yes, the INEC makes some promises, right? And they also have reasons for why some of the promises did not fly. They are there.
Are you content with those reasons because your candidate won and that's fine by you?
That is not it. That is not it. It's not because my candidate won. We won because we were prepared to win election. We all went out. I won my word for my president. Every other person do the same thing. It's a very simple thing. But what we are saying here, there are situations that warrant INEC not able to meet up with some of their promises, and they've put them out there.
So it's okay for you, the excuses that they've given?
Well, so I think they have their reasons, and the reasons they have given, if it is what made them to not to be able to meet those promises, then so be it.
So be it, as long as your candidate has won.
It's
and
not
it's
as
okay,
long as my candidate won. See, my candidate didn't win everywhere, for God's sake. He didn't win everywhere.
So that's the thing. So some people would say that at the minimum, there needs to be a minimum that all parties agree to in terms of conduct of elections. And it doesn't seem that we've been able to reach that compromise on what the minimum deliverables are for the umpire who conducts, excuse me, our elections. INEC made promises prior to these elections, gave assurances severally in many different places in Nigeria, outside of the country, and ensuring that citizens come out to vote, putting all of their trust in it. It comes out, and it's with mixed results in terms of how it is that the elections, not even the results now, but how the elections were conducted. Don't you think that it behoves on all parties concerned to say, INEC, but this is what you said. How come you have fallen short in this regard? And to see how it is that INEC can actually be held accountable at the minimum.
I agree with you, but these things are in progression. The INEC of 10 years ago is not the INEC of today. There have been some progress in everything as regard to conducting elections. It's just like, let me liken it to you having an MTN line, and you promise to call me at 7 a.m. And as at 7 a.m., your phone, the network vanished. You couldn't call me. Oh, but you promised to call me. So what happened is, oh, sorry, I didn't have network on my phone. I should believe you.
We should leave those telcos out because there's more technical scenario.
No, I'm just saying, I'm just trying to make you understand.
Before we bring our colleagues in Lagos to ask both of you questions, I think part of the trajectory Mark was trying to highlight also is that when you say there should be a progression, shouldn't there also be a progression on the part of leadership, presidents of this country? Because we all remember, even some of your party people also refer to it in some points. Former late President Yaradua said, yes, I won. But the process that brought me was not good enough. And so he put up a committee waste panel. It's there. So shouldn't that also be the kind of narrative? Would there be anything wrong if this president says it's towards the same line?
Yeah, there will be something wrong because we worked for this election and we won the election. So I will not tell you that election that we won squarely, we should come and say that, oh, we didn't win the election. No, we won the election. We worked for it and we won the election. So it's as simple as that.
In other words,
we cannot
whatever else happened, whether rightly or wrongly, it doesn't matter.
No. See, that's why I said it's a progression because we don't expect the next election to be like this.
All right, let's bring in
our colleagues. We can always improve.
Okay, let's bring our colleagues from Lagos.
Yes, thank you, Chamberlain. Let me come to you first, Ms. Oshotokun. It would seem like your right to allege and indeed, institute a matter in court is not in doubt. But following up on the strength of Chamberlain's question, why don't you and your political party rather wait for the outcome of the process in court before you, take definite actions? Or rather, if you're convinced about your case against the chairman of the commission, why don't you, go through the normal process, which is to institute a case in court against him, rather than going this route?
I'm surprised you didn't know that we already have a case in court against them. What you just said last is precisely what we have done. But in addition to that, you can walk and chew gum. You don't say because you are doing something, it cannot be complemented by the other. There's nothing low. And I gave earlier the example that, okay, why did channels deem it necessary or relevant to invite us to come and speak, because that is what they have done. So it's not the fact of, I had the other speaker talking about progression. What I've seen is retrogression. Is it not progression? The evidence, look at the CBN governor. The circumstances of his appointment is similar to that of the INEC chairman, and that is it is statutory. To remove them, you have to go to the National Assembly. But first, if the president has a will and believe that the elections that brought him to office so far, leaves a lot to be desired, you can suspend the chairman, right? What we are saying is that sanctions must be seen to be applied, to stop the reign of impunity. If you don't do that, the next INEC chairman will have no incentive to do well. So whatever I do, it doesn't matter anyway, I will get away with it, and so on and so forth. Look, as I said, I'm more
Mr.
actually
if you have a separate, if you have a separate case in court against the INEC chairman himself, why don't you wait for that process to play itself out? Don't you think that this call may, in one way or the other, hit the polity needlessly?
Hit what? Hit the polity needlessly. And those who hit the polity were those who rigged the election. Those who hit the polity is INEC. I've told you what they have done. I have been in court. They are arguing against themselves, giving evidence against themselves, citing the technicalities to avoid the fact that what they did was wrong. I mean, as I say, coming up with glitch. I mean, look, that's, in any case, their reputation goes before them, and I've repeatedly said it here. I did not expect anything good from them. If they have done well, that will be a pleasant surprise. But given their reputation and the behavior, I'm not surprised that this is where we are again. And see, look, how a man like the chairman look at video clips they made months to the election, where they were boasting, swearing by heaven and earth, viewers and this, that, cannot guarantee 100% credibility of the credibility of the election. Only for us, to wait. And see. My own opinion, what I was telling people is that INEC will not use those things unless, which is typical with Nigerian institutions, unless they have found a way to sabotage it or go around it. So this is my own belief. But as I said, look, the international community, it's not only us that they are talking. There is no country or international observer missions that are not saying what we are saying now. They didn't wait. They are not waiting till the end of the court proceedings.
Okay. Let me ask Dr. Obiri this question. Dr. Obiri, you said the other time, Mr. Shitokun raised an issue with you that your own party previously had also threatened, with the process. I think he cited the 2011 that because your party didn't win the election, that you were going to form a parallel government. So in that regard, if your party had lost this election, is that something that would have been on the table?
Thank you so much. Failure is an orphan. And we know what it is when you don't meet your expectation in some certain contests. We never saw APC losing this election because, like I've always, and we continue to maintain that, we work for the election. We mobilize people to vote. And if going back to your question now, 2011, APC lost election. If this election has gone the other way around, sorry, ACN, exactly. Now, if this election had gone that way, and we are sure that we actually lose the election, we will take the defeat. But we didn't lose this election. I said something earlier that supposing Labour Party won this election, are we going to be saying all this about INEC? Are they going to come out to say that?
Just 1 second. It's in the nature of politicians. Pardon me.
No.
It's in the nature of politicians to say the way you're saying, and I was actually thinking that you would take up, Mr. Oshintoko, on the fact that your party lost in 2011 because APC didn't exist in 2011, not until about 2014, 2015. But now to the issues, other issues that he raised about the process and everything, one wonders how your party is even taking it. It's not the first time we are having, elections that are being contested, but this one even more so, particularly with the volume of young people that came out to vote. Don't you think that their concerns are valid, and consequently they need a voice like that of the Labour Party to champion their cause if no one is talking?
When you talk about the youths, it's as if the entire Nigerian youths were rooting for Labour Party. It's not true. APC alone, we have more than 10 million registered members who are youths. Are you telling me that these people voted for those who voted, they voted for Labour Party? It's not true. So the president, sorry?
10 million members who are youths.
Yes, we have up to 10 million members who are youths.
Because the entire vote for the APC presidential election,
see what I'm telling you here
was 8.7 million.
Listen to
people.
Me. Listen, what I'm saying, these are registered members of the party. They may not all vote during the election. It's not possible.
No, because you said 10 million members who are, in other words, youths alone are 10 million members.
Listen to me, yes. But what I'm trying to tell you here is that it doesn't reflect on who votes on election day. Some people may not vote on election day.
Okay, well, all right, my colleague Ayo still has the floor.
Yes, I do. Thank you. I'll come to you, Mr. Oshintoko. I'm actually coming back to you now, Mr. Oshintoko, on this one. Now, a number of things that you have raised, indicate that, the elections didn't really go the way it ought to have gone. And, a good number of people will agree with you. Since 1999, we haven't had any election that would say it's completely free and fair. Every one of us, there is a consensus generally that the freest and fairest election we had was 30 years ago. The question is actually for Mr. Oshintoko. So I'm just asking you this question, Mr. Oshintoko. To what degree then would you say that the 2023 elections was flawed? To what degree, or is the basis of your concerns about the process of the election only based on the reports of the observer missions? To what degree does the LPPCC say that the elections of 2023 was flawed?
Well, let me first correct the reference I made to the position of APC. But, in 2011, those two parties were the legacy, what we call the legacy parties that coalesced to form APC. Second, the reference I made to them was 2015. They were actually threatening to form a parallel government should INEC not announce them as the winner of the election. So back to your question about the level, the magnitude of what has gone wrong with the election. That is precisely what we are doing in court. The hearing stage has just been concluded. Evidences have been given. And of course, both, well, not to talk of PDP, the evidences we gave are overwhelming, and that of the PDP as well. So if you have that kind of evidence, to a large degree, I will tell you that INEC has, look, the reason I make reference to international observers is that it is a third party, and they really don't have any vested interest in the outcome of the election, other than that to see it, to see what they hope will be achieved. But that has not been the case. And it is overwhelmingly so. As I said, I mean, all you need to know, you want to establish the basis for the degree of what happened. We have laid that in court on oath. So that's even more valid than just me speaking here.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this one. I mean, on the basis
to establish the degree.
Pardon me. On the basis of what you just said now, when you said that the two legacy parties, as you call them, the ACN and the CPC, coalesced to form the APC, and along with a number of others, there are those who would wonder if it was a surprise that the Labour Party lost, given that significant elements in the Labour Party were members of the PDP, and they divided themselves. Consequently, they lost.
Okay, that's an alibi. You can use that as an excuse for, if you want to make the argument, if you want to rationalize why the Labour Party lost. But the previous question you asked has answered what you are saying. Now I'm saying that beyond that, we have not established with facts and figures at the court on oath. So it's not a question of me speculating here or speculating on why PDP or LP should win the election, or they should lose the election. And those who want to rationalize the outcome of the election, that is their own, that's the argument for them to make. But we have done the right thing, so the court processes can bear us out. So there is no longer any need to rationalize why LP or PDP lost the election. There isn't much argument. Well, opinions upon opinions, and as I said, reports of during the, can go back to the media, how the media covered the election, which will give us an unbiased, both of us here were partisan. Right? So in order to, lend credibility to my own points that I'm making, is why I give you third party, third parties to the election who have vested, they don't have any vested one way or the other who won the election.
Gentlemen, we're winding down now, so just getting your closing thoughts on this. What do you say to those who think, seeing comments thinking, wait a minute, you come across as though you're defending INEC? Is that right? Why don't you just look, INEC, defend yourselves? If you didn't do the elections right, you face the music.
I'm not defending INEC. I'm not speaking on behalf of INEC, right? If INEC is found wanting, INEC should face the music. I am not in any position to speak on behalf of INEC. But I am just saying, because my party, the APC, participated in this election conducted by INEC. This is why I am making reference. If not, I am not speaking for INEC.
Okay, because when you spoke about when those the facilities for the viewing of the presidential election results didn't come through, and it came through for the other elections, people thought, wait a minute, that is one of the bone of contention where people felt hugely disappointed that you seem to have defended it.
Well, that is left for INEC to explain.
Okay. Mr. Shujoku, I'm not sure we've heard your response on this matter. I know you probably might have given your thoughts somewhere on this. For those who think, wait a minute, but Labour Party, shouldn't PDP say, look, we have more grounds or more grounds to agitate stronger, that even if anything happens, we were, second, and then Labour third. So they don't seem to understand.
Well, that's according to the fraudulent results announced by INEC. If you ab initio, we are contesting that result. We are putting a result that we don't agree with. So there's a question. Nobody, APC didn't come first. PDP, I don't know their position, what position they came, and we didn't come third. That is well, let me
according to the one you collated.
Of course.
What was the figures you had?
I don't want to play. It's in court. It's in court, and then they will give those figures. But you see, the thing is also this: INEC cannot be guilty of what everybody, both Nigerians and non-Nigerians, are given about his lack of credibility, and you expect that agency to come up with credible results. It is a contradiction in terms. There's no way a thief, an established thief, will not logically be expected when they are in the situation of doubt. It doesn't give the benefit of the doubt to the thief. There's no way everybody, all what we are saying about INEC, if it is true, then it has implications for the credibility of the result that they announced.
Okay. If being a conditional clause, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I mentioned to you, if you look at our registered membership of APC, it's about 41 million.
Oh, okay. Well,
and 10 million of that is made of youths.
That could take us in a separate time, just so that's
you can see
what, the 40 million?
Institutional fraud. He mentioned 10 million before. The total number of votes won by their president is 8-point-something million.
So 10 million youths.
Exactly. Now he's talking about
registered
41
members. Registered members.
So out of 41 registered members, only 8.5. You can see what we can't
begin to ask who did the other people vote for. So we'll leave it at that, gentlemen. Akion Shutokun, DG Obidati Campaign Council, and Obiapo Obire, member of the APC. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on today. So we will be back in a moment and focus on the state of emergency declared for food security. That is coming up next. So stay on with us.
In line with this administration's position on ensuring that the most vulnerable are supported, the president has declared with immediate effect the following actions. 1, a state of emergency on food security. 2, that all matters pertaining to food and water availability and affordability as essential livelihood items be included within the purview of the National Security Council. Now, as a direct and immediate response to this crisis, a number of initiatives will be deployed in the coming weeks to reverse this inflationary trend and guarantee future uninterrupted supplies of affordable foods to ordinary Nigerians. We will immediately release fertilizers and grains to farmers and households to mitigate the effects of the subsidy removal. 2, there will be an urgent synergy between the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Water Resources to ensure adequate irrigation of farmlands and to guarantee that food is produced all year round. We will establish ranches in collaboration with state governments, and the federal government will pay for the land.
Welcome back. Yes, indeed. So that we'll be talking about this morning. We're joined by Professor Christine Ikweme, who is of the Department of Food Science and Technology, University of Calabar. We also do have Mr. Festus Idris, the Country Director, Haifa International. Good morning. Thank you for coming on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this particular policy, yes, people are also trying to internalize it to understand how it's all going to play out. Of course, we've heard how it's going to go on. But from your perspective, what kind of consideration are you giving to this? I mean, how do you see all of this policy playing out?
You mean the what policy?
The food security policy, this special emergency on food.
Yes. Declaring food security issue as an emergency issue is very welcome indeed. because right now we are in a state of emergency. We need that, issue to be addressed holistically. And so I welcome the fact that, it's now on the front burner and the government is trying to do something about it, but it's the modality that is the issue. So it's a welcome relief that, the government feels that there ought to be, a focus on the issue of food security in Nigeria because people are really suffering.
What issue do you have? Why did you say the modality will be the issue?
Okay, so the modality is the plan, the strategy. What strategy do you hope to use to, mitigate the effects? Because if you have a wrong strategy, you've not achieved anything. That's what it is.
But are there an indication that there is a wrong strategy already?
Well, I'm not saying that there's a wrong strategy because this is just unfolding, and we've heard what the government is proposing to do. Mm-hmm. But the issue is that the best of the options available? Is that the best of the options?
That's a big question for us, and then maybe that's why we want you to delve. Does this answer what it is that experts have been asking for to help bring down inflationary prices of food?
Well, given a household, the government said it's proposing 8,000. Mm-hmm. The simple question is, what would 8,000 do for a household? How much does it boil down to? And how many households will get it? You see, one thing is government having a policy. They could be very sincere, but they're sincerely wrong. And how many households at the end of the day will have that money? And how would that money, how far will it help in, solving their issues? That means it's like 300 naira a day. Mm-hmm. When you boil it, when you take it, the nitty-gritty is just like 300 naira a day. So what would 300 naira a day?
Okay, well, we'll still get your recommendations moving forward because, having announced this, we like to believe that they want it to work. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll come back to you. But Mr. Yusuf, you being country director, you've been doing some job in this country. How does this announcement fit into what you have been working on in the country to ensure food security?
Thank you so much, Chamberlain. This is a very good initiative in the right direction. We've been in a serious state of emergency even before now. Inflation rate in Nigeria has been increasing year in, year out. And the biggest contributor to that inflation rate increase has been food inflation. So in 2021, for instance, food inflation at some point rose to like 23%. And at that time, the price of food as well jumped up to around 20%. That was hard on the common man out there on the street. As at March of this year, NBS gave the data that our current food inflation is around 24.45%. That's a huge amount of inflation rate to have for food in any country. And if you look at it as well, an average Nigerian today will spend about 56.4% of their income on food alone. That was even before the fuel subsidy removal. And the price of food has jumped up tremendously, more than 50%. So I think it's a welcome idea. It just shows that the government is now saying, yes, previous government has prioritized agriculture as where we need to do more to feed ourselves, produce what we can feed ourselves locally, and reduce how much we rely on importation of food, which is also one of the causes of why we have this interruption or disruption within the food system space. So I would say that what we've been doing in the past is just mainly trying to support smallholder farmers or farmers in Nigeria to grow what we eat. There's so much vacuum there. More than $22 billion spent on food importation on a yearly basis. Farmers are here that can do that can produce some level. Yes, we will still import, but how much of that chunk can we produce locally ourselves so we can have a control of it? And if we must produce locally as well, how do we also reduce the amount of wastages? So if you look at the mandate that government just made, they want to also increase a lot of the infrastructure like storage system, cold storage, and likes that can reduce the post-harvest loss that we experience today and can let us have more available food on the table as well. We're one of the most under-mechanized country in the world when it comes to agriculture. Our farmers struggle to use hoe and cutlasses to harvest or to cultivate their land. We can't compete that way. So the policy has just said that they're going to invest more in mechanization. With a tractor alone going to a farm to support farmers, they can cultivate their land 40 times faster. 1 hectare of land that would take like 5 men cultivating for 5 days, and you're also still feeding them, a tractor can do that in just 1 hour, 1.5 hours. That saves them time to go to school, to attend to health services, and do other things that they're required to do within that period of time. And it's even lower in cost compared to the cost you will have paid for manual labor and still feeding them for that period of time. So I think there's some sense in it. And also, if you look at fertilizers, due to the war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, the price of fertilizer have gone up more than 100%. Farmers are struggling to even buy fertilizers to apply to their land. And I think the news state of emergency declared says that there's going to be fertilizer available for smallholder farmers. Yes, giving fertilizer to farmers for free, it's a disruption in the market system, we know. But as an immediate and emergency response, we can do that. But in going forward, we must incentivize the system to handle that directly themselves. So there's a lot of things that I hear the government say, if it's implemented with a real goodwill and good intention, can help us address the serious food security that we have. For instance, insecurity as well. That's the biggest one. Farmers cannot even go to farm. They've been chased out of their farm because of insecurity in most part of the country. So government is saying that with this declaration, they will prioritize security that will make farmers go back and farm. All right. So we can farm and grow, we can feed ourselves.
Prof raised observations about the 8,000 naira per household and how feasible or sustainable, what kind of impact do you think that will have? Because if that's multiplied by who knows how many, that's a significant chunk. So if it's not going to address or attend to certain issues, why give it?
It's a very complicated situation. And this happened also in civilized or developed world. For instance, in the United States some time ago, the United States government will, from time to time, decide to give some kind of incentive or palliatives to citizens just to cushion the effect. They cannot give enough money that will actually cushion the entire effect 100%, but they can at least do something in that direction. So at the act of giving 8,000, I know it's a little amount of money over a period of months for smaller households, but you can imagine what 8,000 sometimes means to the smaller household that want to be able to afford and feed themselves. Today, most households can't even afford to buy bread because the cost of bread has gone up due to importation of wheat, and wheat has been scarce in terms of supply to the country. So 8,000, to an extent, at least a family can afford to at least look into the fact of even getting themselves bread into the house. The cost of noodles, the cost of fertilizers, which government still, so it's not just a one-off saying government is giving only 8,000. There are other things that government must do to ensure that the entire ecosystem is incentivized and we can take care of the voids.
Like what?
So, for instance, government has just removed subsidy from fuel. That immediately has made transportation costs to go up. But government is also saying that how do we resolve this in other areas? I think what we're just doing is just robbing Peter to pay Paul. We have taken subsidy out of fuel because we feel people that benefit from there are not at the bottom of the pyramid. And we're taking that to agriculture. Because when you start giving fertilizers to farmers, start giving incentives to farmers, you're also trying to subsidize that, which is nothing wrong about that. There have been advanced countries or civilized countries that also give subsidy to agriculture. In the US, for instance, they heavily subsidize agriculture. In fact, the meat and dairy sector get about 60-something% of that subsidy that they give to that particular sector. So government can also do other incentives like supporting farmers to get access to mechanization so they can produce more food, get security handled so we can go back to the farm and produce, ensure that we have input supplies to farmers that can produce and help us provide that space. Let's take care of the infrastructure. If the roads that goes to the rural areas and the farms can be fixed by government and supported, it will improve logistics cost, logistics of food or commodity from the farm to people, and it will reduce cost of that as well. So that will also eventually bring down the cost of food supply, and that will reduce how much we rely on importation.
So, Prof, yes, he's spoken about the subsidy component, and then that 8,000 naira as well. Yeah, it might be little, but who knows? It could have some impact. What recommendations would you have such that it could have the desired result that you anticipate or expect?
Thank you. You know, the issue of 8,000 is like treating the symptoms, not treating the disease. It's like somebody having headache that could be induced by any of the, disease conditions, maybe malaria or anything. And you've not gone to treat the causative, effect, the causative agent of what is causing the headache. You're just giving the person an analgesic. That's just what it means. So 8,000 will not be able to ameliorate issues. What are the issues people are struggling with? Increased food prices, increased mode of transportation system, and everything else. The houses have increased because the landlords will tell you that they need to do this and that and that, and they have also increased it. School fees have increased. So what do? People have to move from one place to the other. So in my own mind, I think the first thing that government wants to put, infrastructure in place. There must be public transport system that would help people to commute from one place to the other at a cheaper rate, discounted rate. That's what should be done in this case. Because you give somebody a household 8,000, out of this 8,000, they're still going to use it to travel. I mean, commute wherever they have to, go to the market, etc. It's really nothing. When you compare this, what they have to spend at the end of the day, it comes down to nothing. And my own is, the households, even this 8,000 will not get to the people. It will not get to the people. So the government must, re-strategize, bring up, infrastructure, public transportation system, increase the salaries across board. Now, salaries must be increased across board.
Some people will say that what you're only looking at perhaps the cities, the urban areas, and of course, I mean, it would seem that it will be different strokes for different folks. So, what would affect those, for instance, staying in Abuja, and how the kind of subsidies they should receive will be different from, say, those in rural areas and rural communities, largely agrarian communities, which the cities depend upon for food.
Exactly.
So you specialize mostly in food science and technology. Yeah. And food is one of the biggest areas where we have problems. We've struggled with food inflation now for the biggest time, for the longest time, beg your pardon. Looking at what they're planning in terms of supporting the agrarian communities to ensure that there is food security, do you think that we are on the right path in that regard?
Now, I haven't seen the full, project structure. Mm-hmm. But to my mind, for the agrarian society, there must be, money for seedling to the farmers. Because in the rural sector, it's a different story, like you rightly said. But they have to be given, monies or seedlings for the farming inputs, the fertilizer and all, at a very subsidized rate. Because they have to, and every other household should be encouraged, put up a small garden by your house. Because in that way, you don't have to buy everything in the market. You don't have to buy a vegetable. If you have a small garden in your house, you don't have to go and buy vegetable. Even if you don't have land, you can put it in potted plants and all that. You can improvise and all that. But the rural dwellers, their own need, it's not like what you have in the cities. The cities, the needs in the city is so much. And so I'm not saying that they're not going to focus on the rural, because their own demand is the farming inputs. And so the government must also make provisions for that.
Of course, they also need cash as well.
And they will need that's the cash for the cash for the inputs.
8,000 naira will certainly, will certainly make more impact in rural communities than, say, in the city. But I'm looking holistically at the general plan, because we know that Labour is still in discussions with the federal government over palliatives to cushion the effect. But we are still waiting for the outcome of their own discussion, even though somehow they still seem to be, they're not quite happy from what we see here in terms of what the federal government has rolled out. That's what the papers, the dailies, are reporting this morning. But more holistically, as a professor, dealing in the area of food, and I know that there are many, many different layers and different areas of food. Do you think that we currently have what it takes to, because people say, leverage technology to make sure that we are able to get the best results in almost every aspect? What areas do you think we can leverage on technology to get the best outcomes to reduce food inflation?
Well, the area we need to focus mostly is on post-harvest, losses. Because surprisingly, maybe about 30% of all fresh produce produced in this country is lost. due to poor management. We don't have post-harvest, management systems. By the time, let's say, you are moving, tomatoes, any of the perishables from the north to the south with the bad road, by the time it gets to the north, to the south, half of the basket is already gone because of the bad road. So what systems, what are the transportation systems you need to put in place? If there were cargo trains, it will move very fast. If there were, government can put up, refrigerated warehouses for the farmers, and they use it in in a cooperative, and they pay for that. It might not even become, but government can give the incentive for private sector in investment into the cold store initiative warehouse, and then farmers can now be able to store their produce, be it yam, be it rice, because if in times of harvest you have so much. That's what we usually have in Nigeria. In times of harvest seasons, you have so much available. Food is cheap, but after that, food becomes expensive because most of them has spot along the way. If you buy so much, and the market woman buys, a lot of it is spoiled. I had a lot of shocking revelation in Calabar. In the market, there's a fresh fruit market in one of the markets. If you go there, about half of the produce are lost. Why? Because we don't have a post-harvest market, systems for preserving these fruits. So the government must invest in those structures. That's the best way to go.
Isn't that where food science and technology can come in?
That's why food science, but you need to have, for you to have a cold storage warehouses, it needs a lot of capital because you need 24/7, lighting. Yeah, you need refrigerator system there. So individuals cannot do it, but government can incentivize, private sector to do it, and then it's not going to be free. So if a farmer knows that, if I can keep let's say my produce here, and I know that eventually I will sell it. You don't need to sell it at a loss, because what happens is that after the harvest, they are in a hurry to sell so that they don't lose this produce. But if you have a place where your produce is assured of the quality, you're going to sell it gradual, and there will be a steady supply of food in the system for a long time. So that is a major problem we have in Nigeria.
Well, it's something worth asking Mr. Idris about, because one of the areas the federal government is looking at is a place whereby they can produce food all year round. They want to partner. They want the Ministry of Agriculture to be in synergy with the Ministry of Water Resources, so that there is irrigation, and then there will be constant production of food. But will it make any sense to keep producing food when it is that we're wasting a significant portion of the food that we're currently producing? Do you think the government is, has looked critically at the food value chain to see where exactly we can begin to save the day? This question is for Mr. Idris. You can hear us.
Thank you so much, Mark. I believe that there are two major areas that we must look into if we want to address this food security challenge that we face as a country. One part is about increasing production and productivity on one side. The other side is also reducing the wastages. There's the post-harvest loss that Prof just talked about. And I think in what I've read so far in some of the policy of the new administration is that, yes, they want us to ensure that we have Ministry of Water and Ministry of Agriculture work together. Why that is important, Mark, is that today we rely heavily on rain-fed agriculture. No country can feed and survive by just having seasonal agriculture where you only rely on rainfall before you can produce. We must increase our production. There is a need for us to embrace and promote more of irrigation so we can produce more food all year round. That also means a lot to the income of the farmers that's producing, because now they can do more than one cycle in a year. It means so much money to them. It means so much food coming back into the system.
Okay, I hope we get him back.
This was, for instance, some of our production system.
He's back. Okay, he's back now, I think. Please go on,
Yeah,
Mr.
solar
Idris,
power
we can
generation
hear you.
system, for instance, that we are. Okay, thank you, Mark. So I was saying that there are two ways: increasing production by supporting all year-round farming, which we can do by not relying heavily on only rain-fed agriculture. Now we can produce all year because farmers cannot have water to produce, as against waiting for only the rainy season to produce. And we're supporting a lot of young people today to use solar powered irrigation system to get that done with smallholder farmers. Government can increase that. That's also an entry point for young people to be involved in agriculture. But on the other side as well, how do we also reduce the wastages? For instance, in the tomato value chain, 40 to 60% of tomato produce in this country is being lost to post-harvest losses as well. So now we can also harvest the power of solar to provide cold storage systems that are powered by solar, which is being done in some part of the country right now through some of our initiatives and other organizations as well in the country. Government can also increase on that particular strategy. So I think it's a holistic thing. It's not a one-size-fits-all problem that you can solve with just one solution. You're addressing productivity issue and production. You're also tackling wastages as well on the other side. At the same time, you're also looking at areas where there's no efficiency within the entire value chain and addressing all those voids within that system. Eventually, government should not even be involved in direct intervention like we're doing now. Just build the infrastructure and address, create the enabling environment, and let the actual market actors on the demand side, on the supply side, to work the way they should work within a functional market system. I think that's what we're going to get to at some point in this country. But for now, I think these are just immediate responses to pushing the effect. And like the President mentioned earlier, rural people feed people that are in the cities. Majority of our farmers are in the rural areas. 80% of them in rural areas get their income from one way or the other from agricultural services or agribusinesses. So it means a lot if we support agriculture, because that means so much income to them, and they can produce more food. They won't feed those of us that live outside the rural areas in the urban cities, in the urban areas as well.
Idris, let me stay with you for a little bit, if you can hear me. Excuse me. There is an aspect of this whole conversation, and I'm glad you talked about the rural areas now. There's an aspect that maybe the president's spokesperson's address didn't speak directly to, and that is the role that the locals have to play in securing themselves. Hitherto, we hardly heard of insecurity at the local government levels. Everyone seemed to watch out for everyone. Remember the son of whom you are kind of a scenario in everywhere where before anything goes wrong in any community, they ask, first of all, where's your house in this community, in this area, in this local government, in this particular street? Who are you? Everyone was able to watch out for each other, and as a result of that, they were able to stave off a lot of insecurity challenges. Now, in terms of food security, how do you see the locals themselves playing a role? Because we can both agree that the governments, whether federal, state, or local, can't think it all through. The people at the lowest rung of the ladder have their own responsibilities in this as well. So do you see a role for the locals? If you do, how do you see themselves also helping to protect whatever it is that they have, supported by the initiatives of the federal government, which we now hear has been scaled up to the level of the National Security Council?
Thank you so much. I believe strongly that, yes, the local could play a very big role, because in the community, in rural community, most times, everybody knows everyone. If you see something, you say something, and you can actually fish out the bad eggs within the community. But at times also, this local, you must understand that are also going through a lot of challenges and changes that's making, even changing and shaping behaviors. For instance, we talk a lot about the clash between the farmers and the herders. And most time we think it's just something that just occur because the herders might be just brutal people that want to take advantage of the farmers. But sincerely, it's also a big climate change impact issue. The herder needs water and grass for the animals to survive. The farmers is also trying to struggle to produce, to feed and sustain their own livelihood. So when due to climate change impact, there's been a shortage of grass or pasture and shortage of water heavily. So when there's no water and there's no food, a stable society will not have the pillar to stand on. These herders now start going through nomadic, moving from one location, looking for grass and looking for water. In that course, they engage with farmers that are actually growing grain in the land. and trying to make food happen. So if also we can support some of the climate smart agricultural solution, climate smart livestock production.
Okay.
The president talked about building ranches. Can we support regenerative agriculture where people
you know, Mr. Idris, while all of that is very, very laudable, taking on the people, educating them about their role is also something very significant. But we're running out of time. Let me ask you, Prof, very quickly in Abuja. A fellow prof like you, Professor Samuel Odeomi, who is a professor of transport and logistics at LASU, said, and I quote, "Many areas in Nigeria are in surplus of agricultural produce," and I think you also said the same thing the other time, "but they cannot get to town. Banditry and violence are disruptions to farming in Nigeria, which is why the report is calling for a supply chain system that is resilient and can withstand shocks." He wasn't the only one that said that at this particular forum where this was discussed. Supply chain system is a major issue to the issue you also raised the other time about post-harvest losses. How do we address that? Prof, it's for you.
Sorry? No, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, boy. Can you hear me now, Prof?
I couldn't hear.
Prof, can you hear me? Just confirm if you can hear me. The question is about supply chain systems. Can you hear me, Prof? Awesome. Oh, apologies. Well, let me ask you that same question, Mr. Idris. If you heard me, supply chain system seems to be quite an issue because we lose a lot to that, not just about storage, but about the supply chain system. Well, how would you suggest that we go about it?
Supply chain system is a very critical thing that we must address if we want to also address the issue of food security. I would say that government needs to invest more in feeder roads connecting area of high production to area of high consumption. We know, for instance, in some major crops in Nigeria, they're heavily produced in the northern part of the country, but it's a big tax trying to move them from the northern part of the country to southern part or where there's a huge market in this country. So I think engaging roads and also improving the logistics system. We cannot completely rely on just having trucks moving things. Government can look more into other alternative way of transporting goods, commodities, and from where they're being produced to point where they're being processed or area where they're being consumed. Looking at the railway system, looking at the waterways, looking at other ways to improve on logistics of getting, and also hygienic part of even moving things as well. For instance, crops that require cold chains from end to end in this country get moved without cold chain. And that alone impact on the quantity of food that end up making it in good sense to the end point. And we lost a lot of them as well.
Closely related to the matter of supply chain is the price control mechanism, which is also incorporated in this declaration of state of emergency by the presidency. I wonder if this will address, the many challenges of transportation of food to the final destination. Are we assuming that it will take care of all those taxes, that food transporters and merchants have to pay, or there is a need for a fuller thinking in that regard? Mr. Idris, that would have to go to you if Professor Kweme can't hear me. Mr. Idris, that will be for you.
Okay, thank you. So I agree with you 100% that there's multiple taxation on the way and also tariffs that you pay for moving foods from the farm to the market. And that's a huge problem as well, causing high cost of food. But I think the government has mentioned one thing clearly, that they're going to promote a lot of commodity boards, which will ensure that there's fair pricing in how much food and commodity are being sold in this country. And that will also ensure that the farmer is protected to get the fair share and the fair price required for what's being produced. But at the same time, government also streamline the method of also charging for the taxes or the levies or fees that you pay along the line to get to the market. And that will also reduce the cost of food as well. But again, the cost of transportation also is still high. Except we can diversify that method and use cheaper and cleaner alternative to transport things from the farm and also to the market. Also, we address that particular issue as well. So I agree that we must streamline and reduce the cost that we pay from farm to market. And also commodity board will also help a lot. But productivity level is important. The cost of even production in this country is still high. And that's due to a lot of reasons that I can still share at some point again.
All right. Let me now come to you very quickly, Prof. The federal government also said through the special advisor on communications that they will purchase land to the tune of 500,000 hectares, which has already been mapped out. I wonder if this is something to share. Does this settle that land issue, which is also always a back and forth as far as livestock is concerned, grazing is concerned, and what would be the role of the subnationals in this regard?
Well, as far as the land issue is concerned, that's a good step in the right direction. Affordability of land, accessibility of land is good. Then again, it all depends how the farmers are going to actually get this land without undue stress, without undue bottlenecks for them to access this land. And so I feel that the land issue is good, is a good step, but then the modalities of actually the farmers getting this land, there shouldn't be any bottleneck. The actual farmers should get it, not political farmers. Most times government means very well, but the implementation is wrong. And so we just wish and pray that actual farmers will get the land, and the inputs that will also go, not only the land, but the inputs, farming inputs, very subsidized farming inputs should be given alongside with the land.
Just one more thing. You talked about you not having seen the project structure. So could you give us a picture of a near ideal or an ideal project structure that should be applicable in this regard to make this work?
So one of the, because I could overhear, one of the speakers talking about the issue of supply chain and productivity, So we increase production. So we can't be going around the vicious cycle of more production, more food waste, more production, more food waste. So the strategy should be that, okay, so we need to address the issue of food losses along the food chain. Where are these issues? What do we do? And the best thing you need to do is to set up these cold storage warehouses in all the local governments. Get the farmers to form, cooperative. I think most of the farmers have cluster, sectors. Get them to form. And then they get a private sector to manage that cold storage facility. And the farmers, and the other stakeholders, they will come to agree as a token that they will pay. So they pay monthly for their storage of their facilities. I think that is to the issue of, it will check the issue of food waste in fresh produce. But then the government must also sensitize other people who want to also turn the product into another end product, because the food manufacturers are having a big raw deal. I wonder how many indigenous food manufacturers are surviving because of high cost of diesel, because of high cost of raw material. So these are the things that government must give incentive to manufacturers. There must be waivers for them. There must be tax waivers for them. If you are going into food manufacturing, what are the waivers I have? What are the incentive I can, I can get from government to be able to cushion the effect that before I go into manufacturing?
All right, Professor Christine Ikmame, Department of Food Science and Technology, University of Calabar. We have also had Mr. Rufus Idris, who is the Country Director, PAFA International. Thank you both for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Kimberly.
All right, so we do have some messages coming through. This one is from Professor Enahena, who says, government must look at funding mechanized agriculture and support subsistence agriculture, stabilize electricity supply, bring down interest rates on borrowing to single digits, just as been opined by the president recently, will empower MSMEs, grow the real sector to produce optimally, which will drive down the cost of production, the price of goods and services, generate employment, increase export capacity, and generate foreign exchange to stabilize the naira.
Well, Ayodeji Ashaolu says the core need of the people is food. I would suggest the federal government should make fertilizer free to all farmers and for those who wish to go into farming. This will automatically reduce food cost.
Well, Yusuf Dauda chooses to talk about the palliative measures, and he says 12 million naira for 8,000 households makes, I believe, a reasonable sense to me than the other way around. At least 64,000 households could be totally out of poverty if it's done continually, biannually for 4 years.
And another email from Chinedu Izala says, crude oil theft. What about the shady mining going on in the north? If the president is concentrating on crude theft in the south because it's a national cake, what about the precious stones theft going on in the north?
Well, I think Dauda reversed it. It should have been 8,000 naira for 12 million households. He made a mistake there. But thank you for your mail all the same.
And thank you so much for the privilege of being a part of your morning. Have a wonderful weekend ahead. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Enjoy your weekend. I am Bukola Koka.
Oh, indeed. Thank God it's Friday. I'm Mark Well, so thank you for watching.
And I'm Train Bellin, so goodbye.